The Andy Pollin Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, figuring they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
So as we head into Thanksgiving weekend, the Commanders' situation seems to be damned if they do and damned if they don't. If they win, that just lowers where they're going to be in the draft. If they lose, that ups their draft position, but it makes what happened last year even more stark compared to this year, that they have become not just a bad team, but one of the worst teams in the league after being the league's biggest surprise last year when they won 12 games. So it's an odd position to be in, and the big question that will hopefully be answered today is, will we see Jayden Daniels, if not this week, sometime before the end of the season? That is a big debate that's going on now. Should he play? Should he sit out the rest of the way? My feeling is he should play if he can play. We don't know if he can play. It is an injury that I believe if they were gunning for the playoffs, he might have played last week in Madrid. I think there was a possibility of that because we've had quarterbacks who have played with a dislocated elbow in their non-throwing arm, and that's what he has, but we don't know. And Dan Quinn is really good at this. He'll say, yeah, I'll tell you tomorrow, and then tomorrow comes, he says, I'll tell you next week, which is sort of what happened after the loss in Madrid. He was asked about the status of Jayden Daniels after the bye week, where they've got this game coming up on Sunday night against Denver. Both teams coming off a bye. This does not look good for Washington as 6.5-point underdogs at home against a team that's won 8 in a row. But last week, a week ago today, this was all Dan Quinn could provide on Jayden Daniels.
I'll have a better update in terms of coming back from the bye. Rehab portion is going good of where he's at, and but past that, I'll have a better update for you guys a week from today with he and Noah and Terry and some others that are on the way back.
A week from today is now today, so we should have something. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's like, yeah, we'll have to see how it goes during the week. We'll let you know. We'll see how he responds to certain things. So, and it's probably strategy, too, for Denver to keep them guessing as to who they're going to be facing, whether it's Mariota or Jayden Daniels. But that's kind of where it's at now. And as for the rest of the season, they're not mathematically out. Giants are the only team right now that's mathematically out of the playoffs. Their loss yesterday knocks them out. But, you know, there is still 6 games left to play, and what Quinn said about that last week.
I use the phrase what's next for a reason because it's literally the only thing we have some influence over. So as emotionally pissed or disappointed or just outraged about how that's gone, we don't have any space to change that. But we do have a chance to influence what's next. So in that way, if you think about it, there's a lot to get your mindset and your approach up, because if you just sit in the other stuff, it's not going to get you any better, Scott. I just know that. And so everybody's frustrated, mad, disappointed, all those emotions. I hate that we're going through it, but it is important to learn how to navigate this. This is life as a professional ball player, and on and off the field, it'll set us up because the young people that are going through that as players, you don't like it, but this is the adversity that sucks. And there's lessons that may be applied in 26 or 27 that's happening now that they can't even see that yet, man. But you just battle with it, Scott. And that's how we intend to do it. But what's next is, hey, how do we get better? What can we do? If I take that approach and they take that approach, then I think you got a chance to work yourself through it, which is important to learn how to navigate. Trust me, I don't want to learn how to lose. I want us to learn how to get ourselves through tough spots.
I think they've done enough learning how to lose this year with 8 losses going into this game against Denver. So we'll get an update later today from Dan Quinn when he talks to the media. Meantime, we had yesterday what has to have been the most hyped matchup between 2 and 8 teams in NFL history, and it was all about Shedeur Sanders. Now, I'll say this for the Sanders family. They don't run away from this stuff. In fact, they fan the flames of it. And Deion showed up yesterday for this game in Vegas, and just in case anybody didn't know who he was wearing his big cowboy hat, and he sat in the box. I guess the mom was there as well, and other family members, other people part of the Shedeur team. And they watched what was very impressive. You got to say that. That it doesn't matter as much, although it does play into this, that they played a team that's an absolute disaster. Raiders are a mess. In fact, after Shedeur and the Browns took care of them 24-10, Chip Kelly, the offensive coordinator, who was brought in this year at $6 million a year, and I don't know the length of the contract, but this is just like college. There's going to be a buyout. Whatever's left on the contract, he's going to get paid minus whatever he gets wherever he goes next. But he's out after just 11 games. The guy who was going to come in and fix everything and be with the new crew. I gotta wonder too. Whether Pete Carroll survives this. He's in his first year, but he's 73 years old, and he's already fired the special teams coordinator. Now he's fired the offensive coordinator and Chip Kelly, and he was justified to do it. Vegas tied for last in points at 15 a game, 30th in total yards, 31st in rushing per game, 30th in offense EPA, minus 77.8, and 28th in red zone efficiency. They've scored fewer than 10 points in 4 games. That's the most of the NFL. It was a gots-to-go situation. So he's out. And I say this about the Raiders. For all the hype about Tom Brady and the inside access that he was getting as a part of the Fox crew, and whether it's fair or it's unfair that he's on these Zoom calls and gets to talk to all these people on the field, there's no proof that Tom Brady is anything better than a really good quarterback, or maybe the greatest quarterback. But he's not the greatest broadcaster, not anywhere near that. Now, even though he's the highest paid at $37.5 million a year, he's working for a Meshuggah owner in Mark Davis. And what's the proof that he really knows what he's doing? They went and hired an old coach who brought in Chip Kelly, another college guy who was a failed head coach with the Eagles. And now he's gone, along with special teams coordinator Tom McMahon, who got the boot on November the 7th. So, how good is Tom Brady advising Mark Davis on this team? Doesn't look real good, does it? And what Shedeur did yesterday, yes, winning that game 24-10, looked sharp. I'll get to what he said in a moment. But, again, the family hype machine is crazy. And this is a TikTok video that his mom put out on Instagram yesterday morning.
Today is Shedeur Sanders Day. Whether you love him, hate him, argue about him, or pretend you don't care, guess what? You're going to be watching. All eyes, all screens, all timelines will be locked in on 2, and 8 teams because of number 12. So go ahead. Lift those wrists. Hold them up high, because it's just a matter of time. Perfect time. Happy Shedeur Sanders Day.
There is an element of tongue-in-cheek to that. I'll grant you that. But, again, here's a guy coming off a terrible performance off the bench the week before. The screaming that went on all week. He should have gotten first-team snaps. Oh, he's the backup quarterback. He doesn't get first-team snaps. And to come out and win a game against a team that is a marginal NFL team, okay, but let's see. And like everybody else in the family, Shedeur is fanning the flames, and off his big win over the messed-up Raiders, this is what he said to a reporter down on the field.
It's amazing, off of 1 week of practice, you know what I mean? This 1 week of practice. So imagine, what a full offseason look like. It get dangerous, but it's just a 1 week of practice, so I'm just truly thankful, that everything happened.
Well, he did have a full offseason, and he began the year as the third-string quarterback. Okay, and stayed the third-string quarterback until they traded Joe Flacco. And then when Joe Flacco was gone, he was the backup quarterback and didn't make his NFL debut until the 10th game of the season. So let's not get carried away with all the prep that he's going to have now, and he's dangerous, and everything's great, and on we go, onward and upward, and on to becoming one of the great quarterbacks in the history of the game. That may happen, but he's a long way from that. But there is this big I told you so from Shedeur after the win.
Everybody could analyze, everybody could say everything from sideline. You could watch TV, everything. You could talk on TV, whatever you want to do. But until you get out there and you do it, then it's different. Going out there, with, only practice with the Hungry Dogs and everything, like, that's different. It's a lot of vet quarterbacks that had their time and everything that were backups and was able to get thrown in the game and be all right. But I don't think they was like that in their rookie year. That's a difference, Like that's different, and I'm thankful for that experience because that helped me get to where I am today. That helped me go into the game very comfortable, knowing that they got a great defense with the Ravens, knowing the different looks, how they could be confusing to the naked eye. But that's why during the game I was smiling so much because I'm like, oh, yeah, if this what it is, I know I'm going to be able to accept that challenge and move forward one day and be able to have success.
Well, hop up here on Grandpa Andy's knee here, Shedeur, and let me explain to you about rookie quarterback and probably other examples of this as well. Rookie quarterbacks who were backups, who came off the bench in a tough situation in a game, also, by the way, against the Ravens, like you did last week, and did not perform well. His name is Kirk Cousins. He's still in the league, as a matter of fact. And in 2012, as a rookie, he was a backup to another rookie, just as you were the week before, also against the Ravens. And Robert Griffin III collided with Haloti Ngata, hurt his knee, limped off the field, then tried to limp back on the field, finally gave it up. Kirk Cousins came in, led them to tie the game, and won the game in overtime. And Kirk Cousins started the following week against the team that you now play for, the Cleveland Browns, and he beat them. So he did what you did in his first start as a rookie. He won the game, which is something that hadn't happened in Cleveland since Eric Zier did it 30 years ago. But Kirk Cousins did that, and he did come off the bench in a close game at the end without first-team reps and did all right, as you like to say, did really all right, won the game in overtime. So, let's not act like you're the first rookie quarterback to come off the bench and make his NFL debut like that. It has happened before. It's happened before. So keep that in mind. Now, I did like this. This was from the news conference, and I'm not making any comparisons to Grant Hill, who's a great college player, maybe one of the top 15 college players who ever played, and would have been in the discussion among the top 10 in the NBA if he hadn't dealt with all those ankle injuries. But Grant Hill grew up affluently, the son of Dr. Janet Hill and Calvin Hill, who was a great player in the NFL, and there was affluence. He grew up in Reston and went to South Lakes High School, public high school. And from there, he went to Duke, had that incredible career, and then went to the NBA. But you may know this, you may not. While he was growing up, his father understood that the level of competition that he was going to get in Reston was going to be a lot different than what he would face when he got to college. And so what he would do is he would take him down to Southeast, and they would play on the playgrounds, and he wanted to toughen Grant Hill up. It sounds like a similar circumstance with Shedeur Sanders and his brothers growing up with Deion Sanders in Texas.
Like when we grew up, my dad had us in a 30,000 square foot home. Then after that, he took us to go play ball in the inner city. After that, we transferred and he moved us across town because he wanted us to get that dog in us, to have that mentality, to have that it factor in us. So then we went to charter schools, and I don't know if you're familiar with charter schools, and it's not the best, but you got a lot of different people from different situations that you got to be able to adapt to. So that's where all those core different things of being able to relate, being able to understand. But now, since I went through everything the past 6 months, it led me to a whole different understanding, and it led me in my own experience with God, with having faith, when nobody else can help you in your situation, but God, So that's why I'm truly thankful and I'm truly happy. And this is the first time I've never had stress, I did the work. I did everything I can in my power I was able to do. So the rest was left up to him.
Well, okay, it's not a finished product. Keep that in mind. And there are other young quarterbacks who have had good games early in their career. Doesn't mean they necessarily go on to greatness. So let's keep that in mind. On top of that, Kevin Stefanski, after the win, is not committing to Shedeur Sanders the rest of the year. I mean, even with a 4-7 record, they're not really in the playoff mix. And Dylan Gabriel could come out of concussion protocol next week and be ready to go. So let's not put the cart before the horse. Let's see it all play out before you put yourself on the top of Mount Olympus off a win over the lowly Raiders, who felt the need to fire the offensive coordinator after the game. There's one other note from yesterday, and this was the game of the day. This was stunning. Dallas Cowboys turnovers, mistakes. They're down 21-0 to the defending champion Philadelphia Eagles. It's all over, right? No, they come back and they win the game 24-21. So there's, I'm sure, chaos in Philadelphia today. And Philadelphia sports radio, man, this is a day to be listening. They are probably just flipping out over the Eagles, even though they still may go on to win the Super Bowl. But things went poorly for them yesterday after that 21-0 lead. But while they were on their way to it, there's a call that the NFL now says was a mistake. And there was a roughing the kicker call on Ryan Flournoy. And the NFL is blaming it on Fox for not providing a timely replay that showed that the Cowboys special teamer, Braden Mann, tipped the punt before he ran into the kicker. And so if you do get a finger or hand on the ball and you hit the kicker, it's okay. And if you're watching, they came back from commercial and they showed the replay and said, granted, we watched this 34 times before we came up with it. But, yeah, there is clear evidence that he tipped the ball. Well, the NFL says it's Fox's fault. Well, aren't you supposed to have replay officials to have a keen eye on this? You have to rely on the networks for this? Anyway, Flournoy was penalized 15 yards, and they got the ball, and they went off to a 10-0 lead off of that. This is Mark Butterworth. Not to be confused with Mrs. Butterworth. Mark Butterworth, the NFL Vice President of Instant Replay, said in a pool report, when there's a flag thrown for roughing the punter, we clear the play to make sure the ball wasn't tipped. We could use replay assist to pick up the flag when we have clear and obvious video evidence that the player that committed the foul touched the ball prior to making contact with the punter. Well, they didn't have clear evidence, but once the replay was done a few times and they zoomed in on it, it was pretty clear that the ball was tipped. He said also, more importantly, the defense can always challenge that the ball was tipped prior to contact. That's true, but Brian Schottenheimer, at that point in the game, trailing, didn't really want to waste the timeout, said he didn't see a clear shot of it, or the people up in the booth didn't do that, so he decided not to challenge, and it was a 14-0 lead that the Eagles got once they got the ball back from that. Butterworth said, for us to replay assist, we would need clear and obvious video evidence, which we didn't have, again, until the broadcast partner sent an enhanced view. I think it was a play or two later. Their enhanced shot showed the ball was tipped prior to contact. So, yeah, they screwed up. But, maybe this is another thing that they have to tweak to get this even more correct. But it was pretty obvious once they had the enhanced view that the ball was tipped away. Coming up, odd circumstance for the Maryland basketball team. They are in Las Vegas, and they are playing a game that will start about midnight tonight. So it's either going to be considered tonight or early tomorrow morning. And then within the same 24-hour period, they're going to have to play another game. If they win both of those, I think they get an extra day to rest, or maybe they have to play 3 days in a row. I forget. It's very confusing, but there's a bunch of teams at this tournament in Vegas, and what we know is they're going to play UNLV tonight. After that, it's somewhat uncertain. But this is Buzz Williams, the coach, who had a news conference on Friday and said some interesting things about where they are as a team and recruiting as well, what the game means now and how it's done in the changing world of college sports. We'll get to that and more as we continue. It's the Andy Pollard Show, ESPN 630. Coming up in the next hour is 55 years ago today that Jim Plunkett won the Heisman Trophy, despite the efforts of Roger Baldessari, the sports information director at Notre Dame, to get Joe Theismann the Heisman, because Theismann at that time, believe it or not, he had played almost 2 years, I guess. Yeah, two years as a starter. He started like halfway through his sophomore year when Terry Hanratty got hurt. He'd been a starting quarterback for a year and a half going into his senior year, and they wanted to do a push for the Heisman Trophy. So the player known as Joe Theismann became Joe Theismann to rhyme with Heisman, and they came up short to Jim Plunkett. So we'll look back on that. It was also 55 years ago today, and probably should have prepared a little more in this, but I was reminded by this this website that I follow is Sports of the 70s, that this was the early days of Monday Night Football. So it started in 1970. The first game was between the Cleveland Browns and the New York Jets. They wanted to get the Jets on because of the number one market and the charisma of Joe Namath and the whole thing. But on this day, 55 years ago, they televised a game from Franklin Field. Franklin Field is on the campus of Penn. And believe it or not, that was the Eagles' home field for decades before they moved into Veterans Stadium, which opened up in 1971. So this was the last year that the Eagles were playing at Franklin Field, and they were playing the New York Giants, and it was really, really cold that night. And Howard Cosell was keeping himself warm with a few nips here and there. He did a segment with Don Meredith as the second half opened, and he was clearly schnockered. And early in the third quarter, he threw up on his shoes, and so they escorted Howard out of the booth in a limousine, and Keith Jackson and Don Meredith finished up the game from Franklin Field. So that happened 55 years ago today as well. All right, Maryland playing in this tournament in Vegas, and it's got a whole bunch of teams in there. It's like 12 teams in it. And the way it works is they match them up depending on the results of what happens in the first game. So Maryland, we know, is going to play UNLV tonight. And then if they win that, they would have to play another game shortly thereafter. It's like, really hours. The game will wind up like 2 o'clock in the morning, and maybe like 15 hours later, they're going to have to play another game. Buzz Williams has already said he's going to stay up all night after this game to get ready for the next one. That's the college way of life, where you got these games close together, and then they'll figure it out from there. So that's the plan. They're coming off a win, which they easily could have lost. They played Mount St. Mary's last week at home, fell behind, managed to get it to overtime, and thanks to Diggy Coit, his name is David, but it's Diggy Coit, transfer from Kansas, who had 41 points, they won the game. And so now it's, survive and advance, and they advance now to this tournament. As far as, getting players like Diggy Coit, who is now in his fourth school, including the junior college that he didn't play at after high school, and recruiting guys, and they made a big recruiting move last week when they got Baba Aladutin, who is a local kid from Clark, I think it's Clarksburg High School, and he'd gone to DeMatha. And now his family didn't want to do the schlep every day to school, so he's playing in a public school. But he's considered to be one of the top recruits in the country. And you get into the question of how recruiting is done these days with all these transfers that take place. A team like Maryland, which has 15 new players, it's a totally new team. What about the recruiting process? How does it work, and how important is it in this day and age where, for example, Rick Pitino doesn't recruit high school players? All he gets are guys who have proven it at the college level and want to go play for him at St. John's. Buzz Williams still going the high school route and explained to reporters last week at his news conference just how it works.
It seems like we've recruited all day, every day since we were hired here. We were way behind on Baba. We were way behind on Caden. We were way behind on everybody, not just Caden, not just Austin, not just Adama. We were behind on everybody because we were trying to figure out 2026, but in essence, we needed to sign 15, 20, 25 guys. So our staff has been remarkable. A lot of the people that total team effort. Specific to Baba, I think I would have to give credit to his family first. That they allowed us to have an opportunity to get to know their family. It's a very close-knit family. Obviously, Baba is the person that we're talking about, but his sisters, his brother, his mom, his dad, very involved, very close-knit family. And so just to have the opportunity to spend time with them at their house, at his school, on our campus multiple times, nearly every day, with all of those guys, we were playing catch up, and we were trying to establish a relationship built on trust. And we were also trying to make really good decisions, not just on the talent, but on the people. I think in order for us to have the total development program that we want, we have to do it with the right people. yes, we have to have the prerequisite talent, but not knowing what our team was going to be this year while also having to make a lot of decisions for this year's team, our staff has been remarkable in their efforts and their consistency in building those relationships, not only for 26, but also for the future.
And Baba Aladuddin goes to Blake High School. I think I said Clarksburg. Blake High School, which is in Silver Spring. So that's pretty quick over to College Park from there. Now, this is again Williams, and he never really explains anything in 30 seconds. He can go for a while. He's a long-distance runner. And this is the debate we're just talking about, high school players versus players who have proven themselves at the college level and going through the portal, and the value of each and how he weighs, how he puts together a team.
It's a hard decision, and I'm not saying that we made the right decision. It is a difficult decision. Do you want to have a really good team, or do you want to have a really good program? And sometimes you can do both. And I think when you think of the 6 months that we've been here to arrive without a team and to put together a team, you have to understand that not all of those decisions late in the game are going to end up being great decisions. And then you have to ascertain, what do you want in your first recruiting class? How many high school players do you want to be a part of your foundation? And then based on the team that you just assembled, how many do you think will return when you haven't even had practice, much less a game, much less a season? So there's a lot of variables involved in the decision-making process of that and in the matrix of that. I just think long-term, my nature, I think how we operate, I think the pace, I think the habits that we want to have require us to build from both. But I don't know that my nature is every year we can be sustainable if we're signing 15 new players every year. But I do also understand that when you make the decision that at least 33% of your roster are going to be 18 years old, there's a process of growth that comes with that too. And when those 18-year-olds are playing 22-year-olds, you're going to have to understand there's some ramifications that come with that. So as it was all unfolding, the talent somewhat becomes easy to figure out, but the decision on the character of who they are, on the sphere of influence that they come from, spending that time, as I mentioned to Harrison, in those relationships, do they fit what we want to be about as we grow this program? And then as you add to that group, now you have to start making decisions on, with your current team, who can have a role, who do you want to have a role, and then maybe once we get to the spring, that will help our decisions on who we need to add. So we spent an inordinate amount of time more in August and September as we're running around the country doing multiple home visits a day on how many high school players do we want to sign in our first recruiting class? How many of those high school seniors can step in and have a distinct role in the Big Ten in January and February of their freshman year? And so I don't know that any coach has that figured out. There's not enough data to suggest over the last 3 years this is the way you do it. But I do think my nature and the evidence of what we've done means we're probably better with each passing year when we have returning players, returning people, returning staff members. And I think both are important. Like, I don't want our coaches to go in the transfer portal, and if we make good decisions, I don't want our players to go in the transfer portal. But I also understand that that's part of what this is. So hopefully it's the right decision. Only time will tell, but that was kind of the direction that we stepped towards.
Yeah, the question is, as we move forward in this new era of NIL, are we going to see a team that's primarily made up of high school recruits? You know, you think back to the Maryland team. Now, this is now ancient history, but 2002, you're talking 24 years ago, including the 2001-2002 season. That was a team that was primarily players that was recruited by Gary Williams and his staff. There was one transfer on that team. And the rest were guys, and in the case of Juan Dixon, he'd been there for 5 years. Lonnie Baxter had been there for 4 years. Steve Blake, the point guard, had been there for 3 years. They got players on the bench that had been there for 3 years. That doesn't work that way anymore. And Buzz Williams is concentrating on recruiting. And if you get the best players and they're ready to play right away, fine. But I think what you're seeing in college basketball is a guy who's been around for a few years, knows the college game. He's more physically mature, knows how to play, and has a better chance of being successful. I'll say this for the games themselves. Games themselves are actually better because the players are more skilled now. They're more refined in their skills. Used the one-and-done era was a lot of guys who were, not quite ready for that level, but that was the way you got players. Now it's all, hey, select this guy, offer him the most amount of money, see if he goes, and go from there. So he's trying to balance it with high school recruits. Let's see how it works out. Diggy Coit, certainly not that, as I say, on his fourth team. 41 points the other night, and Williams had this explanation about how he tells players about shooting. He has the green light and the red light and the yellow light. Now, most shooters totally ignore the red light and go right through the yellow, which he indicates Diggy sort of did the other night, but this is about the 41-point effort and what he saw from his star point guard.
Diggy is a yellow light connoisseur. Diggy has never heard red light, green light. Diggy has never played the point. Diggy has never played 38 minutes. Diggy has never scored 41 points. Diggy thinks every shot is green. That's why Diggy's here. But Diggy's in a completely different role relative to our roster. And now the red light, green light that he learned a month ago during the game. Coach, I think the light is green. No. But sometimes when you drive, you go through the yellow light. Yeah, Coach. Okay, well, it's yellow right now because you see who we're playing and you see the score. And so it's a delicate balance.
Yeah, not that delicate. Shooters shoot, and they needed him to shoot the other night. They needed him to score. He was willing to take on that responsibility, sent the game to overtime with 8 seconds to go, and then took over an OT. I think he scored 16 of the last 19 points against Mount St. Mary's. This is the last part of the Buzz Williams news conference, and he goes. This is a 30-minute midweek news conference. What we used to get from Kevin Willard was a lot of snark. Sometimes they go 15 minutes. Buzz Williams, you ask him a question, he goes. And this is about emotional state, the depth that he goes into in discussing how they handle emotional states of players.
Team rule number 1, always tell the truth, no matter your emotional state, period. Secrets are lies. We teach what emotional state means first: happy, sad, excited, depressed, anxious. No matter your emotional state, always tell the truth. The last thing that I told them on Wednesday night was, you guys are beginning to understand that the difficulty in winning and losing, and also how fragile it is, because we had every reason to lose Saturday in Milwaukee, and we had multiple reasons not to win on Wednesday night here. And so we're a possession here or there from not being 4-1. And you could kind of truthfully explain that and show that. And so one of the things in year one, and it's good for me, I think it's really good for our players because the world is moving so fast and there's so much exposure to what this has become for a variety of reasons, is can we have the discipline to be where our feet are? And can we begin to understand and appreciate and learn the value of this moment, of this day, of this rep? I think some of this has happened organically with our group already. We've missed more man games through 5 games than I have in an entire season as a head coach, and this is my 19th season. And so some of these words that we're trying to teach the why behind, they're seeing examples of. And so I think some of what we think is important is beginning to be absorbed organic.
You got all that. That's Buzz Williams, part of his news conference this past week. Maryland playing UNLV tonight. Game's supposed to tip about midnight. So it's either going to be late tonight or early tomorrow with another game to follow as, I guess they get in as much competition as they can before they roll into the Big Ten schedule. But UNLV tonight, and then we'll see what happens after that. All right, coming up, Tom Brady with a couple of really good stories, and Michael Douglas, the actor, talking about car racing. Stay with us. You'll like it. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630. You know what's crazy about the Thanksgiving traffic rush? Used to be that people went to the office to go to work. Now people can work remotely from wherever. Spread it out. What's the big deal if you leave for your Thanksgiving trip on Saturday or Sunday before the holiday and you need to do some work at your relative's house? You can do it remotely. Yet, the traffic seems to be worse. Used to be just Wednesday was bad. Now it's stretched out the entire week. Oh, and by the way, some years ago, I tried to travel on Saturday, figuring most people were traveling Sunday. Forget it. It's just terrible. Traffic is going to be bad from today all the way through probably next Monday. Well, I guess if you're smart enough to stick around until Monday morning of next week, you're going to be better off. But, it is nuts. And my son and daughter-in-law are flying in from Seattle. Their plane is due to land Wednesday at 5:30. I mean, if you bullseyed like the worst time to be coming in, that might be it. So my plan is to go to the tech slot sometime on Wednesday afternoon and read a book and bring some food and, maybe make a night of it, because who knows how long it's going to be before they get in. I hope they're not delayed too much, but everybody's dealing with the same type of mishigas this week, Thanksgiving holiday. Speaking of mishigas, this story is really something. Have you been to Call Your Mother Bagels? It's a chain. They have a number of locations around here. They had a trailer in front of the Bethesda Community Store. If you're not familiar with that, that's on Old Georgetown Road. And I lived there for a year when I was a kid. My family rented a house in Bethesda for a year right around there. So I remember that store as a kid when it was fully operational. And it's been out of business for years. And what they did was they declared it an historic landmark, and they wouldn't let anybody tear it down. So what they've done is they've kept the front of the store. It's a really tiny store. It's like a convenience store prior to the days of 7-Eleven. And you could go in there, and buy soda and beer and cigarettes and stuff like that. And then, over the years, it kind of outlived its usefulness. But the land is incredibly valuable. It's a tiny little store sitting on this nice prime spot of real estate. And they wanted them to sell. Nope, couldn't do it. So they built from the back to the back. Like the store front still sits there. The historic landmark where you see it from the road is still there. But they built backwards so they can make better use of the land. But next to the store for years was this trailer, Call Your Mother Bagels. And I stopped there once, and it was good. It was pretty good, and they were doing a good business because it's in a good location. But they took the trailer out for now. It may come back, but it's out for now. Anyway, if you know about the chain, Call Your Mother. Well, there's a new bagel chain in New Jersey called, might not even be a chain, they're just calling it a store. It's a store in New Jersey called Call Your Bubby. Now, if you're not familiar, your mother is not a bubby. A bubby is a grandmother, generally speaking. I guess some might call their mother bubby, but I think most people would refer to their grandmother as bubby. Well, Call Your Mother is suing Call Your Bubby. They say, and Call Your Mother is not a strictly kosher Jewish place. It's called Jewish, with the apostrophe. And so what they're saying is it's a little too close. Even though Bubby is not really mother, Bubby is grandmother. According to the lawsuit here, that they are calling it copyright infringement, trademark infringement, and they say for Jewish delis whose brand narratives often center on tradition, comfort, and family recipes, both marks evoke the same core idea: a warm and loving, kind of, but somewhat scolding, like call your mother, like, you messed up, call your mother, call your bubby. Prompt to call your mother or grandmother and to grab some coffee and bagels while you're at it, lawyers for Call Your Mother said in the complaint. The D.C.-based chain asked the court to mandate that Call Your Bubby stop going by that name, to destroy all labels, signs, prints, packages, wrappers, receptacles, advertisements, promotional materials, blah, 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 the whole thing, and use an alternative name, such as Bubby's Bagels. But Call Your Bubby, they say, is a little too close to Call Your Mother. Bubby's Bagels has not responded for a request for comment. So we got bagel wars going on between Call Your Mother and Call Your Bubby. If you're not going to be able to make it home for Thanksgiving and you still have a bubby, and if you have a mother, make sure to call your mother or call your bubby and wish her a happy Thanksgiving. And if you're taking a side in these bagel wars, go right ahead. To me, bubby differs from mother, and it makes it more Jewish than Jewish. So I would side with Call Your Bubby. I think Call Your Bubby is within its rights to use that bagel name. All right, let's take a look at what has happened to the New England Patriots since the glory days of Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, where we used to argue who's more responsible. And we looked at it and said, well, is Tom Brady putting together this incredible career, these 6 Super Bowl wins, because he has what is the greatest coach in the history of the NFL? Is he just, kind of a tag-along on this? And there were some who said, no. Bill Belichick is a tag-along on Tom Brady. Well, it sort of tilted in Brady's direction, wouldn't you say, where he left and he won a Super Bowl with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the end of the Bill Belichick era in New England was not good. And whether he was outright fired or really pushed towards the door by Bob Kraft, we don't exactly know, but it does seem that there's bad blood there. There is bad blood there because Belichick has banned the Patriots scouts from his campus, and not that there are a lot of players to choose from, because they stink. They're 4-7, and they're not going to be bowl eligible. And the latest is from the girlfriend, which is one of the most bizarre parts of this story. Jordan Hudson is suing Pablo Torre. Pablo Torre used to be with ESPN, and now he's under some different umbrella where he does a podcast called Pablo Torre Finds Out. And she announced over the weekend that she is suing him and tagged it on Instagram with a heart emoji in the caption. So Torre fired back a short time later, and she goes by Jordan Bella. I guess that must be her middle name. She says, I assume this means you're declining my invitation as guest on Pablo Torre Finds Out. Either way, I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks, Pablo. Torre, if you don't know, back in May, alleged that there's deep worry about how Jordan Hudson is basically controlling Bill Belichick's life and destroying his reputation and legacy and the whole thing. There was a report recently that there was a shouting match between Jen Belichick, who is married to his son, Steve Belichick, took aim at their relationship. Sources claim that Jen even claimed that Hudson is bat bleep crazy. I think they get some agreement on that. But that is where things stand, where she is suing Pablo Torre. And they also released a statement off of Torre's reporting. Jordan Hudson is not an employee at the University of North Carolina. She is welcome to the football facilities. She will continue to manage all activities related to Coach Belichick's personal brand outside of his responsibility for Carolina football and the university. This reached a high point, a hot button point over the summer, when he was pushing his book in an interview on CBS News, and they allowed this to be part of the story that went out, was her interrupting a question that she didn't like, that she's sitting on the sidelines listening to everything, and she jumps in. Oh, no, you can't talk about that. So this is crazy, and she's showing up in these skimpy outfits on the sidelines before games for a guy who's crazy about distraction. We can't have distraction. Meantime, Tom Brady, has he embarrassed himself? No, he has not. He went out and he played very well. Even at the age of 45, he looked like he had something left in the tank with Tampa and probably could have continued to play. But winning the Super Bowl kind of put an end to the debate, Brady or Belichick. And now he's making a lot of money as an announcer on Fox. He's not that good. There was controversy over his access being down on the field, being able to talk to players, the meetings with the coaches, etc. But it's sort of settled down into this. And as, I guess, part of his massive contract with Fox, he has to answer mailbag questions. So this is Tom Brady. And I thought there were a couple of interesting answers that we can kind of pick apart here. But this is Tom Brady doing the mailbag answering of questions with, I guess, a producer there. And the first question is about a play or a throw that he would like to have back.
I would say it always comes back to whenever the wish you could have done something different in your NFL career. It comes back to one game. The Super Bowl against the Giants.
Oh, no.
And late in the game, Randy Moss got behind the defense, and I threw the ball 1 yard short. It was probably the farthest throw of my career. Rolled to the right, and I threw it back across the field to Randy. And Randy had the defender beat. And if I put it out there 1 more yard, he probably catches that. And we kick the field goal, tie the game, go to overtime. Maybe win in overtime, but that would be the one.
Man, you can see the light just straining out of your eyes there. It's honestly kind of sad.
Yeah, it's worse than sad.
All right, we'll work through it.
Yeah.
Next question from Maria.
Okay.
Tom, what was your most memorable Super Bowl that you played in and why?
Most memorable Super Bowl was the first one, because there's nothing like the first in anything you do. That one in New Orleans, we had 1 week break between the championship game, beating Pittsburgh in the AFC Championship, and then going on to New Orleans. It was my first time ever being at a Super Bowl. The experience was incredible. We were 14-point underdogs against the Rams and found a way to beat the greatest show on turf. Adam Vinatieri, game-winning field goal. Ty Law, interception return for a touchdown. David Chief Patton catching a touchdown on the out and up just before halftime. It was an incredible defensive performance, and yeah, that one I'm never going to forget.
Okay, next question is from Victor. Tom, when was the first time that you met Rob Gronkowski?
Wow, wish I could remember. His rookie year, I always remember him at practice, his rookie year in the preseason. He was so fun and so awesome. And he was learning how to play the position, but there was a part about him which he brought so much childlike fun to everything that we did. And it's kind of what our organization needed, because, you know, we're a little serious at the Patriots at the time. And Gronk brought his own personal fun, levity to everything we did. And I love being his teammate.
Did you ever watch the draft? Do you remember what was going through your head when him and his entire family of 55 different Gronks were on stage headbutting each other?
So I remember that. And I didn't meet him at the time, obviously, but I remember Wes texting me right away and be like, dude, did you see the tight end we just drafted? And he was like laughing out loud at how funny it was that Gronk was jumping all around. And I don't think anyone's ever going to forget that draft moment. The Gronkowskis taking over the green room.
All-time great moment. I hear they put in a rule since then. They're cutting off family members at the draft these days.
Oh, there's enough Brady rules. There should be a Gronkowski rule, all right? Or at least one for you, Gronk.
Question from Matt.
Yep.
Hey, Tom, looking back at your career, what would you say was the most challenging time for you?
Wow, great question. There was a period in consecutive seasons where I blew out my knee in 2008. 2009, we came back and we had a terrible season. One of the worst seasons we had. We lost in the first round of the playoffs. 2010, we had a great season and lost in the first round of the Jets. 2011, we get beat by the Giants in the Super Bowl. 2012, we lose in the championship game to Baltimore. 2013, we lose in the championship game to Denver. So that period right there ended in a lot of tough losses and a pretty tough knee rehab. So I'd say that area right there actually made me appreciate what we accomplished in 2014. So remarkable. It actually brought so much kind of love back to everything we were doing, because sometimes when you work really hard at something and it doesn't pay off, you know, there's a lot of, I would call it scar tissue that builds up. Sometimes you think you're in a great position to succeed and you don't quite get the way you want it. And sometimes it can discourage you. I'm just proud that it motivated everybody to dig that much deeper to try to finally get the outcome we wanted by just doing things at a higher level and executing in a better way.
You really have no idea how Jets and Browns fans feel hearing Tom Brady talk about the darkest times of his career being a playoff game loss and a run of AFC Championship game appearances.
Well, you're right. That's great perspective. I don't necessarily have that perspective, but the question was directed toward me, so that was the answer.
That's a good problem. That's Tom Brady's problem.
I think about that. The Jets have just clinched their 10th straight losing season. So this is Brady discussing the hard times. And yes, getting knocked out in the first game of the year in 2008 is a bad deal. He got a knee injury, finishes his season. Actually, Matt Castle, it was a really interesting story. Matt Castle hardly played at USC, played behind two Heisman Trophy winners and didn't get the opportunity to play. The Patriots still drafted him because, he had that experience of working with great teams and at least competed for the job. So he got his chance when Brady got hurt. They won 11 games that year, didn't make the playoffs. He makes it back for 2009. So they go 2 first-round exits in 2 years. They make the playoffs 2 years. I mean, run of consecutive playoff appearances, at least to this town, is good. That has not happened since. Might not have happened since Joe Gibbs. Is that Gibbs won? Is that possible? I think so. Gibbs made it twice in 4 years, but not consecutively. It might be that. Back-to-back playoff appearances. So they went out in the first round. Then they go to the Super Bowl, and they lose in the Super Bowl. They lost the AFC championship game in 2012 and then lost the AFC championship again. So in 5 years, all playoff appearance years, they made the AFC championship twice and the Super Bowl once, and that's the worst run of his career. That's pretty good. That's a pretty good run right there. to have a lot of guys would look at that and like, wow, that was a great run of our career. We almost won a Super Bowl. We went to two more championship games. That's great. No, for Brady, that's the dark times. That's the dark times. And that's when you know you're living right. That's when you know things are quite good for you and life is good for Tom, who's not yet even 50 years old. Think of all the life that he has lived. He's doing quite well for himself. Coming up, among other things, we'll get to this. It was 55 years ago today that Jim Plunkett of Stanford won the Heisman Trophy in what was, I think, maybe there were years before that, but this was in fact the year of the quarterback. It's referenced many times that you had the top 3 picks of the draft being quarterbacks. Top pick was Jim Plunkett, who went to the Patriots. Archie Manning went to the Saints, and Dan Pastorini went, I think it was 3, to the Houston Oilers. Joe Theismann was in this mix. Theismann actually went in the 4th round to the Miami Dolphins, went to play in Canada, then came here in 1974 when George Allen traded a first-round draft pick to Miami for his rights. But he had not played in the NFL for 3 years. He'd been playing in Canada, came here and sat for quite a while. Sat 74, returned punts. 75, he was the 3rd-string quarterback behind Billy Kilmer and Randy Johnson. Then 76, he was the backup quarterback. Didn't really become a starter until 77, and not until 78 was the full-time starter. But his story in the Heisman Trophy is worth looking at, and we'll do that as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
So there was a time in the NFL where there wasn't this quarterback rush, that you had to draft a quarterback and you had to find one. And if you didn't get the right one in one draft, you just waited till the next and drafted another quarterback. That really wasn't the case in the 1960s. And just an example of that here, Sonny Jurgensen, very much in his prime. In 1967, he threw, I believe, 32 touchdown passes, and he had the number 1, the number 2, and the number 4 receivers in the league. Charlie Taylor was number 1, Jerry Smith was number 2, and Bobby Mitchell was number 3. I mean, Sonny was cooking, and there was no real need to get a quarterback. Yet, they traded a first-round draft pick to the Rams for the rights to take Gary Beeben, who had won the Heisman Trophy at UCLA. I'm too young to remember this, but maybe there was this great hype for Gary Beeben that he could be a great quarterback, Heisman Trophy, be good enough in college for sure. And so they bring him in, and as it turned out, he was a bust. I don't think he ever took a snap at quarterback for the Redskins. Played a little receiver, played some special teams, and was in and out of the league in 2 years. But the thinking at that time was, yeah, he may be a great quarterback, but we need time to develop him. So even if he shows promise, it could be 3-4 years before he takes the field. And there were examples of that previously in the NFL. Len Dawson, as great a quarterback as he became with the Kansas City Chiefs, sat on the bench for a few years with the Cleveland Browns, then went to the AFL, got his opportunity. That's the way things would work. But now with the money and everything, you got to go out and get a quarterback who can play right away. And if you get one, you try and play him as early as possible, which we saw with Jayden Daniels that he's playing now and all the young quarterbacks that are successful around the league. And this began to change in early 1970s because, running back was the hot position. And the famous incident in Philadelphia where they booed Santa Claus, that was related to the fact that the Eagles had actually won a game the week before, which moved Buffalo up to the number 1 draft pick so they could take O.J. Simpson. O.J. Simpson was thought to be such a franchise changer that the fans in Philadelphia thought, yeah, let's tank and get O.J. That was like early tanking. They didn't call it that then, but lose as many as you can so we get the number 1 draft pick so we can take O.J. As it turned out, O.J. goes to the Buffalo Bills, although he didn't make them into a winner. He was clearly the most popular player in the league, somewhat because of his commercials and because he was sensational. He had a 2,000-yard season. They took Leroy Keys, who was just a player, and the rest is history. So that was part of it. But 1971, we have what could be the first year of the quarterback. And you have the Heisman Trophy winner being drafted number 1. That was Jim Plunkett. And you had Archie Manning, who was the third place finisher for the Heisman, drafted number 2 by the Saints. And Dan Pastorini, who had been a great quarterback at Santa Clara, was taken either 3rd or 4th by the Houston Oilers. But the Heisman Trophy race was interesting that year. As much as college football was about running the football, and the game was so much different then. The top players were running backs, even teams that threw the ball didn't throw that much, relatively speaking. But you had this race between these 3 high-profile quarterbacks. Joe Theismann at Notre Dame. Notre Dame in those days was on television all the time. Not too many teams were. Jim Plunkett at Stanford. In that, they knock off, they won the Heisman actually before knocking off number 1 Ohio State in the Rose Bowl, but he was big and strong and was on his way to becoming a great college quarterback. And then Archie Manning, who was at Ole Miss and was hyped to the moon. He had some great games on TV as a junior. So that was the 3-person race. And in preparing for this 1970 season, that's what it was, the 70 season for the Heisman Trophy, Roger Baldessari, who was the sports information director at Notre Dame, approached this upcoming senior, this senior quarterback, Joe Theismann. He approached him about a name change, as Theismann has retold many times the story of Roger Baldessari getting him to change the pronunciation of his name for the Heisman Trophy hype.
He said, Joe, how do you pronounce your last name? I said, it's Theismann. He says, no, actually, it's pronounced Theismann. I said, no, my last name is pronounced Theismann. He said, no, Joe, your last name is pronounced Theismann. I said, give me the phone. I want to call my dad. I call my father. And I said, Dad, I got a question for you. How do you pronounce our last name? And there's like dead silence on the phone. About 30 seconds goes by. My dad comes on. He goes, are you all right? I mean, you're calling to ask how to pronounce your last name. I said, Dad, I'm fine. I'll explain it later. Just how do you pronounce our last name? He said it was Theismann. Hung the phone up, turned to Roger. I said, Roger, my last name is Theismann. He said, Joe, I want to tell you something. There's a trophy out there called the Heisman Trophy. It goes the best college football player in the country. We think you have a chance to win that trophy, but we're not just going to count on your athletic ability, nor the reputation of the University of Notre Dame, but we think by just simply changing the pronunciation of your last name from Theismann to Theismann to rhyme with Heisman, we can get you that trophy. And so that's how I became Joe Theismann. And it was really the first, I guess you could call it, campaign to try and get someone the Heisman Trophy. And we've seen umpteen of them since then.
No question. And he did not get the Heisman. That went to Jim Plunkett, and he won by a fairly wide margin. Theismann finished runner-up. Archie Griffin was number 3. This is part of the Sports Century piece on Plunkett, who did win by a wide margin, threw for 2,700 yards and 19 touchdowns. That was a lot of number, a lot of touchdowns in those days, believe it or not. Now you could probably get that over 3 weeks, but he had 19 touchdown passes in that season, and they won the Pac-8 title. Yeah, it was the Pac-8 in those days, 55 years ago. and then went on to upset Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. But the Heisman Trophy went out before the Rose Bowl, which, of course, was in January 1st. In those days, they beat an undefeated Ohio State team. And this is part of the Sports Century feature that was done on Plunkett and how he overcame incredible odds to win that Heisman Trophy. His parents never saw him play. They were both blind. And then in his month before the start of his career, the start of his enrollment at Stanford after being a high school star at Lick High, they was told by doctors that they had a lump that they had found at the base of his neck. They were concerned it was cancerous, and they said if it was cancerous, that was going to end his football career. But they did remove it. It was not malignant, thank God, and turned out to give him a clean bill of health. And he went on to do what he did. This is about winning the Heisman Trophy 55 years ago at Stanford.
That was the year of quarterbacks. Archie Manning, Joe Theismann, and Jim Plunkett and Pastorini. I thought Joe Theismann or Archie Manning would win the Heisman Trophy going into the season.
Plunkett was kind of a cover boy, before that season, but he wasn't thought to be the best quarterback in the country.
The 36th winner of the Heisman Memorial Trophy. Congratulations and good luck.
Thank you very much.
I've had a call from Joe Theismann. He's waiting to hear from you, and I have the number, and I hope that you'll find time to call him back. He's waiting to hear from you. Congratulate you, too.
He stands up and he thanks his mother. He couldn't have made it without his mother, who's not there. I mean, for Jim Plunkett to draw inspiration from someone who never saw him play, that shows real character.
With Jim coming to Stanford, he went a long distance. Believe me, he wasn't the Heisman Trophy candidate when he first got into school.
In his final collegiate game, Plunkett showed the nation why he won the Heisman. The site of proof, the Rose Bowl. The opposition, Ohio State.
I remember walking down Main Street at Disneyland, and they had the two teams walk side by side. It was kind of a tradition, and I was looking over at the Ohio State team. As we started to walk down the street, I was thinking, geez, those guys are big, and those guys look pretty mean.
Ohio State was like an assembly line to the pros. 10 or 12 are going to make it. But Stanford had the hammer. Jim was the hammer. When he hit Vitaha on his backside in the end zone, it was 8, 9, 10 out.
Completing 20 passes for 265 yards, Plunkett took Stanford to a 27-17 upset of the unbeaten Buckeyes.
We went into that game feeling that there was no way that they could beat us. Jim came out and threw some big passes. Jim took that team on his back and just picked us apart.
They want to make him a defensive end, and he stands up and he knocks off the greatest team of all time. That game made Jim the #1 draft pick in the NFL. In big games, there was nobody better.
Yeah, Jim Plunkett was taken #1 by the New England Patriots. Archie Manning went #2 to the Saints. They were both bad teams. They both got the crap beat out of them. Plunkett managed to get out of there. Archie did late in his career, but never had the team success that Plunkett had. But it was a rocky road, and I remember Plunkett in his second year beat the Redskins, who went 11-3 that year. They lost the last 2 games of the year, but that's because they were resting Larry Brown. They had everything clinched, and we're going to have 2 home playoff games, the playoff game and the NFC Championship, before going to the Super Bowl, which they did. But early in that season, Jim Plunkett upset them. He had Randy Vitaha with him. The Patriots took him as well, but they were a bad team, and it was just a bad day for Washington. They lost the game, and Plunkett eventually was released from New England. I say released. It was like he was getting so beat up with a bad team. He said, let's give him a break, send him back to where he was from. He's from the northern part of California. They traded him to the San Francisco 49ers, and things were so bad in San Francisco that the former #1 pick of the draft, the Heisman Trophy winner, Plunkett, who won it 55 years ago today, was released by the 49ers. The place to go in those days, he didn't have to go far. He went to the Oakland Raiders, claimed by Al Davis, and Jim Plunkett won 2 Super Bowls, is not in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, even with 2 Super Bowl championships. He has not. He's not made it. And one of the dumb questions that was asked during Super Bowls, and they always go over these kind of questions. Like if you were a tree, what kind of a tree would you be? There's the one about Doug Williams, which isn't exactly accurate, where people say, how long have you been a black quarterback? That's not really it. But Jim Plunkett was asked leading up. This was I think it was the game against the Redskins. It may have been the one against the Eagles. He won both of those over a 3-year period. Because of his parents, both being blind, a reporter from, I think it was the Boston Herald, Larry Whiteside, said, "Let me get this straight, Jim. Is it blind father, deaf mother, or vice versa?" And, of course, both of them were blind, but those are sort of the questions that get asked. And, for someone who had that kind of redemption in his career and in college, too, they wanted to make him into a defensive end. And they stuck with him as a quarterback, and he did that. But although he is in the National Football Foundation and College Hall of Fame, he is not in the NFL Hall of Fame, the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and probably should be for what he did with winning the two Super Bowl championships with the Oakland Raiders. All right, that's a wrap for me. Bram is coming up next. I will be here tomorrow and Wednesday, and that means I'm back here tomorrow at 9 a.m.